Hey, it's Sol with another video. It's a spoiler-filled video regarding the events before the Battle for Azeroth expansion begins. The other week, Ian Bates, aka the Red Shirt Guy, tweeted the following. So, the Teldrassil questline's Horde and Alliance versions are completely incompatible, as the events shown are so different they can't be reconciled. That's not morally great writing, that's just really confusing. When Ian speaks, people listen. I'm kinda jealous. Word began to spread among some of the lore-minded folks in the community that odd things are happening with these dual scenarios. Maybe it is just a lot of bad writing in part of Blizzard. Maybe it's a subtle tease, the tip of the iceberg that this entire sequence of events is this work of deception by the old gods. Maybe it's just beta. It's been 1 week since that tweet, and since then, at least 2 beta builds have gone out. I decided to investigate these scenarios and see for myself if there are indeed some shenanigans going on. Spoiler alert, it's not. I can't go back in time and redo this scenario from a week ago, so maybe things have changed since. Maybe there was some confusion back then. So today I'm going to piece together the combined Horde and Alliance story that makes up these events in Ashenvale and Darkshore, the first part of what I think is being called the War of Thorns. So strap in, folks, because I'm going to be jumping back and forth between the Horde and Alliance scenarios. It might get a little bit confusing. So here we go. The story starts in both the Undercity and Stormwind. Players are given a quest to meet with their faction leader to discuss upcoming plans for the war against the opposite, oh-so-evil and dastardly faction. Sylvanas instructs the Horde champion to go to Saurfang, and we meet him in Northern Barrens. The Horde was told to march towards Silithus, but that's just a ploy to mess with Alliance intelligence. Actually, the Horde are going to march to Ashenvale and eventually burn their way to Teldrassil, well, they'll eventually capture it and apparently not burn it down. The Horde champion travels to Asternar and meets up with a Blood Elf rogue who tells the champion that by now all of Ashenvale is being assaulted by the Horde. The champion points at targets and the rogue kills a few guards with a super special poison dagger, and when that's done, the place suddenly lights up on fire. Sylvanas and Saurfang arrive at the city, and the Horde champion is told to go to Zormgar Outpost to the west to basically tell them that hey, the Horde are coming, put your pants on cause the war chiefs are coming. When that's done, the Horde champion returns to Asternar and the place is pretty wrecked. All the soldiers and citizens are pretty dead, some of them leaking out green stuff from the poison that was used earlier, and by now Ashenvale is in complete control of the Horde. Saurfang is pretty much ready to move on, but not before telling the champion to meet up with Sylvanas as she scouts ahead because war chiefs tend to do that. Presumption time. Saurfang and the Horde march on behind the Horde champion. Meanwhile, Forsaken rogues wander into Asternar in case any Alliance show up. And maybe they want to gather up bodies to raise as Forsaken later, who knows. Night Elf reinforcements show up and start to secure Asternar, but they're under attack from these Forsaken rogues. They get word out that the Horde isn't going to Silithus, they're already in Ashenvale. As the Alliance champion is told to go to Silithus, Matthias Shaw shows up to reveal the Horde ploy, and tell the champion to instead immediately go to Ashenvale. The champion takes a portal to Asternar. They kill a bunch of rogues and bless their fallen brethren. They're then instructed to help out Malfurion, who's probably fighting Sylvanas by now. This marks the first intersect point where the Horde and Alliance champions are in the same spot simultaneously. Sylvanas and Malfurion go pew-pew for a little bit before Malfurion puts up his fancy death wall. Sylvanas retreats, and then the story splits up again. On the Alliance side, the champion is told to help deploy some druids and to kill frenzied furbolgs because according to Malfurion, the Horde got them all riled up. The thing is though, up to this point, the Horde should still be stuck behind the death wall. These furbolgs have always been hostile though, so maybe this just isn't a big deal and Malfurion is just saying something to rile up the Alliance players. Anyway, over at the Master's Glaive, there's a few Horde stragglers fighting some Night Elves. This is another weird inconsistency because no Horde shouldn't have got through that death wall. Maybe this is an advanced party. Maybe this is a bug. But at any rate, there's only a few of them here anyway, and it doesn't really impact the narrative, so this isn't really a big deal. Meanwhile, the Horde champion meets Sylvanas back at Zormgar, and they have a great idea to blow up the wall with missiles. The champion gets on the gyrocopter and blows up a few trees, which might have made the furbolgs go crazy, but that seems like kind of a stretch. Anyway, the Horde champion blows up a bunch of wisps, and Sylvanas helps the champion and a few more Horde break through. Once they get through, they engage some Alliance over at the Master's Glaive and destroy some siege weaponry. Then they go to the same area that the Alliance champions went to earlier and they kill more Furbolgs along with their Sentinel Owls. You know, I feel really bad for the Furbolgs. They just get trashed this entire scenario. So once this quest is done, the Horde champion returns to Sylvanas. And now we're about to reach another intersect point. The Horde champion fights with a big burning tree. The Alliance champion fights a giant shredder. Why are both NPCs not on screen simultaneously? I'm not sure, but I don't consider it to be the end of the world that players aren't seeing their friendly giant shredder or giant tree on screen getting their butt kicked. The actual intersect happens with this cutscene, which plays out the same for both sides. We go back to the Horde, where Sylvanas instructs the champion to conquer the Blackwood Den nearby. The champion kills a bunch of crazy, frenzied Furbolg and subdues the 3 leaders of that tribe. They even admit surrender. At any rate, the Horde occupies the den and now uses it as their base of operations. Somehow there's a bit of a time skip because the Alliance champion regroups and then all of a sudden learns that the Horde have already taken over Blackwood Den. They're instructed to free the captured Furbolg leaders there. It's presumption time again. The timing of the Horde and Alliance version of these quests is a little bit weird, but here's what might have happened. The Horde captured Blackwood Den, but they're keeping the Furbolg elders alive, supposedly so they can gather the other Furbolg and clear out, or they're being held hostage to coerce the Furbolg into leaving, which is what they sort of do. Very shortly after the Horde established their presence, the Alliance champion stealths in and sabotages some siege vehicles, as well as set those Furbolg elders free, seemingly without anyone's knowledge, because on the Horde side the Furbolg elders aren't seen at all after this point. Is this kind of inconsistent? Maybe, but not too big of a concern. So meanwhile, the Horde champion has moved on to the Twilight Shore and that island whose name I can't pronounce to kill some Alliance and get some Azerite. Maybe at the same time, the Alliance champ has moved on to the Twilight Shore and that island whose name I can't pronounce to kill some Horde and get some Azerite. Both champions meet up at Twilight Vale and the forces of the Horde and Alliance jack each other up. Sylvanas and the Horde champion retreat to Blackwood Den. The Alliance champion retreats back to Darnassus to help rally a defense, and both quest lines end. So that's pretty much that. Maybe the quest consistency is really rough on the edges, but I don't think we're at a conspiracy level of deception here, and this is despite the quest being at such close proximity to the Master's Glaive. I'm just gonna be a very healthy skeptic. But what do you think? Do you agree with my skepticism, or do you think there's something sinister going on? Because there is supposed to be more in store that leads us to the climax of this battle in Darkshore. I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Please like this video if you found it interesting. Subscribe and think of supporting the channel so I can keep giving you more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.